Hi, Shaun. Welcome to Reboot Room. Thank you for accepting my invitation and coming on Reboot Room. So, at Reboot Room, we talk about technology and trends, and especially into AI and automation. And we bring in experts, someone like you from different areas of expertise, to share with us the insights that how technology is making difference in their work. All right. And before we get started, can we know something about yourself? How long have you been here and what are you up to?
So I've been here since 2008. So I think that's close to, if I get my maths right, 17 odd years, something like that. I came out just before the global financial crisis hit, working for one of the banks, which possibly wasn't the best idea in the world, but it kind of worked out okay. Since then, I've worked in a number of different roles, both corporate and on the consulting side, in a mix of HR, talent acquisition or recruitment roles. And currently my role at Hudson Talent Solutions, I look after kind of their RPO and talent solutions piece across the Middle East and Africa region. So yeah, Dubai's been my home for a long time and probably will continue to be.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, so you have been long enough to see the difference. So before we get into technology, let's talk about how the shift of job market is changing. Have you seen any changes? What was the scenario before and how is it changing now? Is there a demand or is there a shortage of talent or there is overwhelming talent? I mean, how do you see the market now?
I mean, wow, it's changed. Obviously, 17 years is a long time. So it's changed massively over that period. I think when I first came out, it was still very much called a frontier market or emerging market, whatever the kind of economic terms are. And back then, it was very much still, essentially a startup country in a lot of respects in terms of business. A lot of corporates were coming out here for the first time. It was very much an environment where the country was still developing a lot in terms of that kind of corporate business mentality. So there's a lot of building, a lot of kind of designing things from scratch. That's obviously developed and come on massively in the last 17 years. And I think the biggest shift, is the speed of development of this country and the innovations and the kind of pace of change. So, from a labor force perspective, in terms of labor market and demographics, there has been a huge influx of talent here, and that talent has got steadily more credible, more experienced, more skilled as time's gone on. And the numbers in terms of the volume of people coming in, so your expat populations obviously make up a large number of the working population here versus the local population, but that population has exploded massively to the point now where, I guess, if you kind of fast forward to today, what you have now is a labour market that's very competitive, no longer seen as anything like approaching a hardship market. People want to come out here. There's opportunities here. There's a lot more innovation and entrepreneurial kind of mentality that's bringing people out from some more established Western markets. So it's very much a competitive kind of place that people want to go now versus, back in the day, 17 years ago, it was still very much seen as kind of somewhere that was maybe a bit of a risk to come out.
But now, with all these people coming into Dubai, do you see that are there any new unique challenges which were not there in past, but because of these many number of people who are pouring into Dubai, do you see there are any hiring challenges, any unique challenges which you have seen?
Yeah, so the hiring challenges are, there's a couple of different areas. So because you have obviously a large influx of people coming in, one of the things that's happened in the last 2 years, which has been quite a lot of kind of press or articles about, which is, because there's a large volume of people coming in, because people want to work here, what it's done is actually push salary levels down across the country and across the region. So say, for example, people that have been here a long time have kind of built up a good level of experience in this country. But what you're finding now is there's a lot of people from Western countries, from Asia Pacific, even from parts of UK and Europe as well, that are coming in, and we can talk about this a little bit later on, but because of the perception around, they believe they're getting kind of better salaries, better packages because of the kind of tax-free attraction a lot of the times. There's sometimes a little bit of a miscommunication or disconnect in terms of actually what it costs to live out here. So what's actually happening is that you're actually getting kind of cheaper talent from some of these markets, which is then driving down salary packages here, where traditionally they have been a little bit higher. So it's good from a point of view, it makes the talent more competitive. but it is driving down salary levels a little bit, which is then a little bit of a concern for some of the longer term expat population that's living here, because they're then struggling to then compete with this new influx of talent. The other kind of challenge is that this market has always been an area where you have to go out and find that talent. So the talent pools are fairly scarce, or have been in the past.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, compared to, say, UK, European markets, or more established, say, Asia-Pac markets, the talent pools, just the sheer numbers are less. So historically, the demand in terms of jobs has always been kind of high for candidates. That's becoming less the case now. So actually there's more candidates on the markets looking for jobs than there were in any previous years. So again, the competitiveness level has gone up, and employers can be a lot more selective, a lot more picky sometimes than they've previously been able to be.
Yeah.
Certainly in the last sort of, I'd say, 3 to 4 years.
Now, with all these people who are coming from overseas, from different various countries, you said a good point over there that they had the expectations of high salaries because of the past market, but now they are realizing it's not the same because the cost of living has increased.
Yeah.
So you being in the talent acquisition or these companies where you directly deal with clients who are coming from outside, do you explain this to them? I mean, do you have such kind of conversations with the new candidates who are joining in?
Yeah, so whether it's us as kind of an RPO company that's managing services on behalf of clients, or whether it's, say, recruitment agencies individually hiring for client positions, there's always a part of that role which is kind of explaining to candidates, what to expect when they come here. Same with the companies that have their own in-house recruitment teams or HR teams, they're doing the same. But I think there is kind of still a little bit of disconnect when people come out here sort of thinking about sort of the cost of living, especially accommodation costs. So you come out from the UK thinking, my salary in the UK is X. I can get that salary, the same salary out here, tax free. I'm obviously going to be a lot more well off, etc., disposable income. That's not often the case, because while certain things here are very, very kind of inexpensive, so for example, cost of fuel, labour costs for sort of domestic workers, that kind of thing, a lot of the other costs are very, very high. So accommodation costs, grocery costs, because a lot of things have to be imported.
Leisure activities costs. Actually, Dubai is one of the famous destination where they have so much to offer that you end up spending a lot.
Yes.
I mean, you being here for 17 years, definitely you know that they have a lot to offer other than just the regular things which you get in other countries. You have got brunches, Sunday brunches, you have got parties, you tend to spend more anyhow, and then that leads to the same kind of mentality where you are saving on the taxes, but then you end up spending on something else. Lifestyle, right? Now, this is good. Now, let's get into the technology of recruitment. How do you think that it has evolved right now? I know that in past there were certain softwares which were being used and all those things. How is AI impacting your hiring process? I mean, just to give a little bit brief on that to get started, how is AI impacting on your hiring process?
So massively is the short answer. So the kind of influx of all the AI pieces that have come out. So your chat GPTs, your LLMs, has made a massive difference everywhere globally, and the HR space, the recruitment space is definitely no different. What it's done is it's allowed companies that are hiring individuals, or organizations that are supporting companies hiring individuals, to really take a kind of hard look at their operating models, because a lot of the developments in AI are enabling things to be done, multiples of X faster, quicker, more efficiently than you would have done before. If you think about the kind of process around just a typical recruitment or talent acquisition process, for example, a lot of that process is essentially quite high volume, repeatable, repetitive tasks or workflows. HR departments and recruitment departments in the past here were very manual, very people driven, very, very admin focused, right? So that kind of environment, that kind of business function lends itself very well to being disrupted by AI, which is all around. In the beginning times before the AI piece came, you had RPA, robotic process automation, so a lot of automation efficiencies. But now you layer on top of that some of the AI pieces around generative AI, Even now, at the cutting edge, you've got things like agentic AI and multi-agent systems. 65 to 70% of those processes and workflows have the potential to be completely disrupted and completely automated, which will radically change the makeup of your teams, how many people you have in those teams, and what roles those people are actually doing going forward. So huge disruption, huge change, very exciting, but there's a vast learning curve, and it's happening very quickly.
So when starting from screening the candidate or start looking for the candidate and until the candidate is on board, I think you do everything, right? Or is it just the hiring and handing over the last piece to the company?
No, so from an RPO kind of what we do, so our service is around managed services. So we would effectively either become that organization's hiring function, i.e. replacing that function to manage it completely on an outsourced basis, or we can augment existing HR and TA teams, recruitment teams, to manage parts of that process. So it can go everything from before you've even made the hire, during your budgeting process, you're developing your manpower plan, your budgets for next year, how many hires you need, what levels, etc., all the way through to, working with hiring managers to define what they need, going out to find those people, assessing them, selecting them, through to kind of making offers, and hiring.
All right. Where do you see best fit of AI in this process? I mean, like, how do you see, because you have got the full experience on paper now, and where do you see it's going to make most impact, and where is it making actually the impact?
So it can make the impact across the pretty much most of that process. Historically, and kind of if I was talking to you maybe sort of 6-8 months ago, a lot of the focus was on the areas where it took the most manual human amount of time to do. So typically that includes a lot of your admin processes. So for example, scheduling interviews with line managers across multiple interview stages with multiple candidates. That was a very manual back and forth process between a hiring manager and a recruiter, right? And a candidate. So 3 individuals trying to schedule interviews simply. And that used to take up anything between 20 to 25% of a recruiter's total time, managing the interview management process. The other area that was a big time drain was around sourcing and screening. So finding the candidates. How do we go out finding them? Be that through posting jobs and going through applications, be that through direct headhunting or direct sourcing on platforms like LinkedIn, or going through job boards, etc. So that manual process of an individual going out trying to match candidates from candidate data online in various platforms, that was also kind of a big chunk of time, probably between 25 and 30% of a typical recruiter's time.
All right.
So those 2 things there were things that people were focused on because those could be really efficiency gains. So with the developments in kind of AI and now with agentic AI, you're able to have the technology do a lot of that work for you, be that through automating the workflows or intelligently sourcing those candidates based on kind of programmatic briefs of what that person's looking for, through to kind of then your admin management piece. So, like I said, if you think about the recruitment process as a set of different workflows, a lot of them are fairly repeatable, fairly kind of high volume and repetitive tasks. So they are ideal for, firstly, robotic process automation from a couple of years ago, and now evolving that into sort of AI and agentic AI, actually able to manage that workflow and make decisions on those workflows and actually manage it more like a human. And the term that's come out now is kind of digital employees. You can think around these agent systems as digital employees, and people are thinking about it in that sense and working with them as if they are essentially an employee, but just a digital version of that.
Now, good that you mentioned about digital employees. Is that making any negative impact on the recruiters? I mean, like, I know that we are talking about implementing technology and making their work easier from 30 to 40%, I guess, because it's heavily admin task involved. And now if you are using a technology which will be taking care of most of these things, would that mean that indirectly we are reducing the count of number of people? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So your productivity gains and your efficiency gains by using AI will mean ultimately that you need less people to do the same, or less people to do even more. And this isn't just across HR and recruitment. This is across all sorts of sectors: sales, customer service, any process kind of roles where you're managing workflows essentially can be now automated. So from a recruitment perspective, for example, some of the work that we've been doing is indicating that essentially you can get a 3x productivity increase from an existing team with the same kind of resources, but a 3x increase in productivity. So what that translates to kind of practically is if you have a member in a recruitment team that's managing, say, 20 roles, 20 positions for hiring managers at any one time, they can now potentially manage up to 60 roles at any one time, which would have been
it's
unthinkable.
being more efficient, and they are taking over more responsibility, I believe.
Yeah.
So the people who are much more aware about the AI tools got best shot at working longer, I believe.
Yeah, and this is one of the big things that's kind of the conversation at the moment is sort of will AI replace humans, not just in HR and recruitment, but in all jobs, right?
It's happening everywhere, actually. It's not only that. The other day I had the conversation with a doctor, and he too is worried about his own job.
Yeah.
Will it replace the doctor as well? So it's going there. It's reaching out to higher positions also, and we just want to see how it plays out. And definitely now these tools which we are talking about, which we discussed just now, this is more of a recruiter side. Is there something happening towards the candidate side also for the AI?
Yes, and this is the constant battle between kind of your recruiter and your companies and your candidates, because candidates are actually ahead of the curve. So candidates are using AI in all sorts of different ways every day to increase their chances of roles. So the simplest ones and the ones that are kind of most out there at the moment are, you can use AI to scrape various job sites, look at all the roles that you think might be suitable for you, and it will do that in seconds, minutes for you, and then send out 50 applications in less than a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So, whereas before you or I looking for a role might apply to, say, a few roles here or there on one or two platforms, you can now leverage AI to apply for hundreds of roles across tens of 20s of platforms instantly.
Yeah.
You can also have the AI rewrite your CV. You can also have the AI rewrite your CV based on the specific job description that's on the post you're after, and customize it completely so it fits and is also ATS ready. So ATS is our applicant tracking systems that a lot of companies use to kind of manage their candidate flows. The AI can intelligently look at how to beat the keyword scoring systems that a lot of ATSs have, to ensure they get through the first funnel, because now increasingly companies are using AI as a first filter, but now candidates are using AI to beat those filters.
Okay. So where are we heading with this?
A constant battle. No, but yeah, it's a really interesting one.
So, has that make your job more tough right now? I mean, when candidates are using AI to bypass the filters also, so it means that you're going to receive more and more good CVs, whereas they are using AI, but then the recruiter would need to contact that person, more of those people, because everyone has a 5-star CV.
In theory, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a way more, and this has been seen over the last 12 to 18 months since we had the kind of advent of all these ChatGPT kind of LLM models that people have started to use, right? So numbers of applications have gone up by 200, 300, 400%. Companies are reporting many multiples of the applications they're getting, and yes, because they're not necessarily using all the tools from AI, they're still doing it the old way, manually. And it's just not, the volume of applications is not enough. So what you're finding in a lot of cases that companies are missing the best candidates, because the people that they're selecting as the best candidates on paper are actually not the best candidates. So there is a problem there. But that problem is only a temporary problem in my view, because as companies and organizations and recruiters and staffing companies catch up to that, the ways of working and the technologies that they employ and the methods they use will change. So obviously, if we're using old methods to combat new issues, that's going to be the issue. But as the candidates evolve how they apply, companies and staffing firms will evolve how they filter and assess.
Yeah. Well, every sector has their own problems with the AI, which is evolving right now. It's not only the recruitment, it's in hospitality, it's in finance, it's in other different areas also, that everyone is facing certain challenges, if not the same, but certain challenges because of this evolving of AI, and everyone is trying to put their feet and trying to stabilize their operations with this wave of AI which is coming into. because even in finance, people are scared that the employees might just upload their data to finish their work faster, whereas that's the financial data. So they have to be careful on that. Now, it's not just ChatGPT out there, but LinkedIn is a very professional platform, right? And isn't that working against us? I mean, against us as in recruitment also. They are giving a AI model to the candidates to make their CV according to the job description or according to the job which is available.
Yeah.
And then they are giving recruiters access with the AI to filter the CVs as well. So they are playing both ways, I believe.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the money is being made, I guess. That's what is happening. So are you guys using any AI tools in Hudson RPO?
Yes. So, like a lot of staffing firms, actually, another kind of group of people I was speaking to recently. So, around 75% of US staffing firms and organizations are now employing some level of AI enabled technologies within their businesses for hiring purposes, right? Be that whether it's kind of screening tools, assessment tools, filtering tools, automation of workflows to help with admin tasks. The vast majority of companies and staffing firms in the US are starting to do this, closely followed by places like the GCC, UK, Southeast Asia, some of those areas as well, especially around sort of Singapore, Hong Kong. So I think, yes, there is a challenge from that point of view, but the challenge is being met by the organizations who are now kind of realizing they need to innovate. So the old methods aren't going to work going forward.
Okay.
LinkedIn is another interesting example because obviously they have, for many years, they've had the monopoly, they had the dominance in the market. A lot of companies, organizations, staffing firms use LinkedIn as a primary source of candidates.
Yeah.
But I think that will change because it will change because essentially, if you think about LinkedIn, it is a community-based database, right?
Yeah.
It's a live community database. Essentially, what you can layer on top of that with some of these kind of agentic AI multi-agent systems is digital employees who can scan that database 1,000 times faster than a typical recruiter would. So essentially, the value of LinkedIn is now in the data it holds rather than the access or the functionality that it provides, if that makes sense. So your agent systems now, whereas it would take a recruiter maybe many weeks to kind of go through 10,000 profiles to find 20 that could be a fit, an AI agent can do that in minutes. And it can do it for about 5 different, never mind 5, it can do it for about 50 different jobs at the same time.
Absolutely.
So,
and 24/7, don't forget that.
Yes. As a phrase that I heard from someone recently, that the 24/7 kind of always on availability of AI means 2 things. Your candidate engagement goes up, and you have what I like this term, infinite time per candidate. Okay. So if you think about you as a job searcher, whether you've used either recruiters to help you find a job or whether you've just dealt with in-house HR teams when you've been applying, those people have limited time to speak to you, one candidate versus the other candidates and other jobs they have. And AI has infinite time for you.
Absolutely.
You can spend hours talking to it about the company, the culture, the role, the benefits packages, what it's like to work there, what the process is. Infinite patience, infinite time. Okay. So actually, where there's a lot of arguments around AI dehumanizes the process, doesn't give a great experience. Actually, on the flip side, as AI gets more conversational and more natural, which is really the key objection at the moment, actually your candidate experience goes up because of that key piece, right? Okay. Candidate availability and infinite time per candidate.
Yeah. Actually, if you can find a lot of positive things in that, what you are saying. First of all, it's available 24/7. So if a candidate has preference of time, recruiter doesn't have to wait until then. AI can definitely give a call and take all the details, whatever is required. And there are a lot of tools available right now which can judge on the speaking abilities, communications, and all those things, if that's part of the criteria of the job also. So that's something which is happening. Now, you have been using some tools or more of tools at Hudson RPO as well. Have you seen, is there any bias in these tools? Are there any biases which you have noticed?
Yeah, I mean, There are definitely biases when you're building these tools. Obviously, with the open systems that have been out there, there's obviously a lot of talk and a lot of discussion around how ChatGPT hallucinates on a regular basis, makes stuff up, or gets the wrong information. Doesn't give you the source material it's coming from, and the source material may be some very niche, not verified source of data, because essentially it's an open source, open database kind of piece. So yeah, I think there is that ongoing conversation, and that's going to be there for quite a while, because that is one of the biggest objections and biggest kind of drawbacks for companies, especially kind of adopting this, because the moment you move from an open system like you or I might play around with Llama or ChatGPT or Perplexity, the moment you bring that in-house and start building your own systems, you're using proprietary corporate data. So then you are much more liable from a number of kind of regulatory, legal standpoints around how you manage that data. So again, this talks to the evolution of how HR teams and corporates need to kind of change their approach, and this will kind of result in new roles being created, roles that don't exist right now, that kind of manage this fairness and bias piece. So in the same way that you have within banks, risk and compliance officers doing KYC or AML for bank account opening, you'll have similar roles which are effectively compliance or QA, quality assurance roles, that are specifically working on managing fairness, doing fairness audits or bias analysis, etc., to constantly make sure that the products these companies are using or the ways that they're working are being kind of sense checked from a human element, which obviously those roles don't exist now. There's no need for them, but there will be a whole bunch of new roles and responsibilities created in these teams as a result. And obviously those people now aren't trained for them, so that's a new source of roles that are being created. At the same time, a whole bunch of legacy roles are probably going to be replaced.
Yeah. See, that's a really good way that you have put just now, and not many people talk about that. When we talk about AI, people talk about, am I going to lose job? Is my job is at risk? But no one talks about how many new jobs are coming into market. The ones which you have just now mentioned are very few to name. There are so many things which are coming up. It's just all about keeping up on the edge of what's happening. It's keep learning on the things, and then you might end up into a newer job role which you haven't even thought of. I mean, there are so many new roles which are coming in, and there might be some completely new role in the recruitment area also, which no one ever thought about, like for an example, for the biases, and maybe something else as well. A trainer of an AI could be that as well, because
Exactly.
you never know, because AI models need some kind of supervision all the time. Even now, the best models are always, there is a disclaimer that do not rely completely on this model. Someone has to check at the end the result, and only then you make the decision on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of natural for some like an emerging technology, and it would be the same. It would have been the same when the internet first came out, or when telephones first came out. Everyone focuses on the kind of fear factors and the negatives, because that's what they know. They know their traditional system, and they know why that traditional system is going to have issues with this new technology. But because no one at that point in time has got massive amounts of experience or knowledge or technical expertise on what it can do, you kind of focus on the reasons why not. Whereas, yes, a lot of roles will be created. We just don't know what those roles are necessarily yet. As we get deeper into things and actually start to use the technology and find out what it's capable of, then you start to realize, oh, actually, yes, we have these issues. Actually, that's a new role that needs to be created. Yeah. So that's why it doesn't get as much focus in the first instance, because you're constantly kind of trying to catch up to what you're bringing in, essentially.
Yeah. So it's more of a fear of unknown. Someone recently gave a very good example, actually. It's an example like related to fire. When fire was invented, and then when it was brought into the society as well, where people started using it in their house and being properly distributed, a proper use with the gas and everything. No one knew what will be the disadvantages, what will be the dangers. Over the time, there were some incidents which happened, and then there was a fire station created, fire safety happened, then building safety happened, because there were certain incidents which led to the understanding of, okay, we definitely need this. Now today, in today's world, there would be no building which would get licensed without the fire safety hazard.
Yep.
So there is an entire learning department, there is an entire implementation department around it. And same thing is going to happen with AI as well, I guess.
Yep.
There's completely full-fledged departments going to manage all these things.
Yeah, and this has happened throughout time immemorial. So if you you think back to one of the most basic examples when cars were first invented, right? I don't know whether many people kind of remember this, but when cars were first invented, you didn't have the infrastructure necessarily, so they were a little bit dangerous to be on these like dirt tracks, which were traditionally used by horses. So when cars first came out, everyone was scared that it would like blow up or there would be a massive danger to society. So they actually had, in the initial kind of first periods when cars were on the roads, there was a law that said you had to have a person in front and a person at the back waving flags to let people know that the car was coming. And at this point, cars were like going at maybe 2 miles an hour. There wasn't really a risk. But because of that unknown factor, what tends to happen is you get over-regulation, over-governance, and a lot of kind of guardrails put in place, which are really not needed, until that technology becomes a little bit more understood, accepted, and kind of then your guardrails fall away, because you realize that, okay, having a car going at 2 miles an hour down a dirt track road with two people, one at the front, one at the back waving flags, isn't really necessary.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, it's a very extreme example, but it's the same time every time you get a disruptive
you're
technology.
Absolutely right on that, and everything comes. Eventually, we figure out, then we get used to it, and then it becomes part of our life as well, isn't it? So, with the AI tools, what you are using, have you recently, completed any project which has helped? Which AI has helped your agentic AI tool has helped you? Have something happened recently?
Yeah, so the piece that we're looking at now is still kind of in development. We've been working on this year, but we're already starting to kind of test this out with a number of kind of existing clients and talking to a lot of people around how we can then build this into our solutions. So really kind of we're focusing on 2 or 3 main areas really, which is kind of efficiency and productivity around the next step of kind of automation. So admin processes, repeatable tasks, repetitive tasks, high volume tasks, to kind of automate those, have those run outside of human sort of interaction and control. The next one is then kind of your data manipulation. So whenever you're dealing with large sets of data, need analysis and intelligence from that data, that's another big area for it. And then the last area is you're then getting into some of the more complex workflows around what we talked about before. So sourcing, having interactions with different individuals, different teams, so hiring managers. So whether they then start to do some of the assessments, some of the interview kind of processes, or even start having some of those kind of candidate and stakeholder engagement conversations that aren't necessarily the high value ones that you would need. Now, across all this, you're still going to need a very clear human touch and a clear human point of reference, specifically around things like sort of compliance checking and sort of key decision points. But yeah, there's already starting to be kind of like a very clear vision from our side around how our current solutions, which have traditionally been very kind of people-led, managed services, individuals, technology, and processes, now being kind of augmented very heavily at all stages of that process by some of these agentic AI systems and multi-agent systems. And again, for us as an RPO provider, if we can provide solutions to clients that before needed, I don't know, a team of 10 people, but now need a team of only 5 for the same productivity output, it's obviously going to be a win-win where we'll be able to sort of innovate and create more kind of demand for services, but be able to provide it at a far lower cost, which is obviously going to be also a good ROI for the client. So from both sides, it's kind of like a necessity, really.
And it's like a unique selling point for Hudson RPO as well, because when you embrace technology and you start to show all this savings and efficiency with these tools, you actually stand out in the crowd. Not everyone is able to do all that, right? Now, when we are talking about using these kind of tools, and when we are having the conversations. Imagine at some stage there will be calls going to the candidates and AI is screening the candidates. Do you think that's going to happen soon? I mean, is it happening now or is it going to happen soon?
It's happening now. So
Oh, right.
in certain instances, it's happening now. So
Okay.
you've got the technology that allows you to do, obviously you've seen chatbots.
Yeah.
You've got sort of avatar-based people that
Yes.
you can now have voice calls, phone calls, you can have Teams calls. You've got platforms that even before kind of some of the most recent AI developments were there, you were able to have kind of platforms and technology systems that could interview candidates based on presets, programming around competency levels, competency definitions, screening questions, etc. So you've always kind of had an ability to do very basic screening, basic assessments, but now it's just been able to take it one step further. You can now add a lot more depth of data into the programming of an agent to be able to very closely mimic how an interviewer would assess someone. Because at the end of the day, if you think about this, and this is still kind of a point of debate where people say, okay, you could do that for very low level, high volume roles, simple roles, but you couldn't do it for complex senior roles. But if you think about it, your workflow processes are the same. It's a set of defined responsibilities. If you're looking for soft skills, you probably have some sort of competency framework, so a set of behaviors or skills that this person needs to have. You can define to what level those skills and behaviors are required. In the same way that you would train someone as a recruiter how to interview, the same principles, the same methods, the same concepts, the same way you would train an AI agent as your digital employee to do the same thing. All right. So a lot of the arguments around why AI could never replace a real life human interviewer kind of become redundant. There are still certain things there in terms of rapport building, some of the pieces around I need to be able to speak to a human, et cetera, but those are all kind of, I think, personally, as a result of just we're in that kind of early stage. Fast forward 10, 15 years, people will not be worried about not interacting with a human. It'll become common knowledge. Not common knowledge, common practice.
Now, I think the reason people are a little bit hesitant as of now is because banks are setting up a very bad example of what AI would look like. Because right now, if you call a bank or anything and there is an IVR which says, I'm your AI agent, please say something, and it will not allow you to finish until it finishes its sentence. So that's not the AI we are talking about. We are talking about some next level AI. I've seen a couple of, you have seen also, there are some amazing examples out there. The language, the articulation, the accent, and everything is top notch. And it's very difficult to make the difference between human and AI as well. That those kind of calls are happening nowadays. And you won't believe that even at our hotel, there were some times that we received a call from an AI agent on the behalf of guest, reconfirming the check-in and check-out dates, saying that, Mr. So-and-so has made a booking at your hotel. I'm calling as a check that we are still good, and there are some extra request, which it will say, and whatever reservation agent tells, it records and it hangs up.
Yeah.
So that's happening. So we are already at a stage. But I think the hesitant also is because of thinking that it's a robotic call. We don't know the etiquettes until now. So if I get a call from an AI agent and I know it's an AI agent, and do I say please? Do I say thank you? I don't know about it, to be honest. I don't know the etiquette of how to talk to an AI agent. Usually we do, we have certain set of mind, emotions, and everything, right? And when I get a call from AI agent, I still do not feel that that kind of connection yet. It's more of a human thing. But eventually, with the practice, I think even I will let it go. So you never know on that.
And it's a new thing, right? So, how many times have you spoken to an AI agent so far? Probably a handful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus
just
how many
times.
Versus how many conversations have you had with humans during your life?
Yeah.
Right. So it's just it's getting used to the whole idea, right? And the reason why everybody kind of is kind of initially still very nervous about it is there's a lot of people trying to bring these products to market. So you get 90% of the products that come to market are not potentially fit for purpose. They're kind of still in beta stage.
And this is a bad example also.
Yeah. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got sort of, voice-based agents that you can call that you can barely distinguish between them as a human. Like the lag times now are way lower. I've seen voice agents have conversations with an individual on the other end of a Teams call, Microsoft Teams, that are switching languages 5 times in a call with a lag of less than like half a second. So, and switching seamlessly between, say, Italian, English, Arabic, French, etc. So one of those, I think one of the best ones out in the market at the moment is Gemini Flash. So that is probably the leading one in terms of voice-based performance at the moment. And that's only going to get better. The bad versions, the bad iterations of these will all fall away.
Yeah, that's true.
And it will just get better. It's just a case of a little bit of time, getting used to the idea, and kind of people adopting it more and more over time.
Right now, I think there are on the websites, on the recruitment websites and everywhere, I have seen on a couple of ones where they have put a disclaimer and they have put a checkbox that for the candidates that I am okay for my CV to be reviewed by AI. What do you think about this? This kind of consent, is it necessary? Of course, we have to disclose that their CV will be screened by AI first. And do you think that's a positive start towards the transparency?
Yes, and it is a necessary part. So behind a lot of this stuff is a huge amount of regulatory and compliance and legal liabilities. So a lot of those kind of like disclaimers are kind of mandatory for a lot of this stuff, because essentially, yes, there's a transparency piece. You need to be very clear with individuals that you are talking to an AI agent, or you're being assessed or screened, or you're interacting with an AI piece. And because the technology is so new and there's this risk around fairness and bias, there also needs to be a bunch of processes behind that enable, say from a recruitment perspective, a candidate to challenge that decision. Because at this stage, you don't know whether the AI is making the correct decision, because we're still working the technology. So the other thing that is being done a lot more now, as well as just those pure disclaimers, is kind of companies that have something like an appeals process. So if you as a candidate apply to a company that's using AI in any stage of this process, and that AI is making either decisions or scoring or any sort of subjective piece of information that someone else, even if it's a human, is making that decision on, then you should have the ability and the option to challenge that decision. So a lot of companies now are putting in kind of an appeals policy or an appeals process that says, right, if I'm a candidate, I've been rejected for a job, where was the AI involved in that process? Were they involved in my initial shortlist, or were they involved in scoring my assessment? If they were, do I want to appeal that process? Yes, I do. I have the right to have my case looked at by a traditional human-based kind of resource to say, was that decision the correct decision? Yeah. So as well as these disclaimers, you need to have the processes behind to be able to validate and protect your kind of AI.
No, that's a really good point, actually. That's heavily in favor of the candidates to show how transparent companies are. If you can reappeal the process and they know that it has been reviewed by the AI only, and it could be that AI might have missed something or misunderstood something or hallucinated as well. You never know what kind of things it might miss out as well. Yeah. Because there are times where it has hallucinated confidently, and it has given confidently wrong answers as well. And that's something it's important for candidates to have a reappeal process as well in these kind of things. Yep. Now, what do you think is happening, right? So the way it is now getting developed, these AI models and everything, what do you think? What's the end of it now? I mean, is it going to be that no one is going to sit in the office? Everything is going to be automated? I don't know. I'm just talking about way in the future, because on the certain aspects in certain areas, I know for a hospitality, that's not going to happen, that everything will become robots and the AI and everything. But because you mentioned something very important, that recruitment is heavily task-oriented process and you have repetitive work and everything, do you think at some point it can be fully automated?
I don't know. I mean, in theory, yes.
Yeah.
There's no one can sort of see how advanced these things are going to get. But I mean, if you look at the scale of the speed of innovation and development in just the last, I mean, when did ChatGPT come out? Was it 2021, 22?
I think, somewhere around that.
It's been about 3 years.
Yeah.
To see where we've come from initially to where we are now.
It's too much.
How much time is it going to take for, the next kind of iteration to come through? In practice, there could be all sorts of things happening. Yeah. And I think, as we start to use the technology more, start to understand it, start to kind of leverage what it can do, I think you will find that a lot of areas where people previously thought that these would stay, human-centric process or human-centric activities will kind of fall away as well.
Okay.
But those would be replaced then by roles that are more aligned to managing those AI processes or digital employees essentially, and your skill sets will change. But yeah, I mean, I could see again hospitality. Could you get to a process where hospitality as a concept could be fully automated? I don't know. You've got.
Well, I hope not.
No. But you have the next piece in this. The next big iteration of kind of this AI piece is then the physical piece, right?
Yes.
So you're going to have your robotics catch up at some point soon,
Yeah.
and the moment you have your robotics catch up with your AI intelligence piece, then you start to get into the realm of, okay, there is a significant disruption here that could mean that a lot of roles that require a human element may well not need that in the future.
No,
but
definitely. See, in technology, one thing I have learned is that I cannot be biased. It depends on what people want. Now, if, as you mentioned rightly, that we are not used to of talking to AI agents as of now, but then in future, people will get more used to it. And in future, people will get more used to of seeing robots at the workplace. In future, all this is going to happen slow and steady. So at some point, there might be a person in charge of someone in a company who might say, I am fine with replacing everyone with the robots and the AI and all those things. And there will be people who are accepting that as well. So it should be fine. I mean, that it entirely depends on how this embracing of these technology is going to go. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, there's companies like, for example, Salesforce and IBM that have kind of publicly come out and said, look, we are going to be replacing 20, 30, 35, 40% of our workforce with digital employees, AI agents. That's a strategy.
Yeah.
Which is obviously quite concerning for the employees, but is kind of like a very clear indication of what's to come from other corporates, I think.
Yeah. Now, you have been long enough over here in UAE to understand how are the companies reacting to this? Are they open? I mean, I'm talking about the corporate companies. Are they welcoming AI, or are they a bit hesitant because it has the employee data? You will be submitting their data as well. Are they open of you using AI as their partner?
Yes. Well, I say yes. There is a mix. So that companies and organizations here, depending on kind of where they're at in how much they've looked into this and how much they've kind of wanted use cases to either increase productivity or costs, etc. Most of them that are kind of going down this rabbit hole now are becoming open to it, because a lot of the times when you're in a sort of corporate organization, you have two options really, build versus buy. You either build the technology, build the process, build the function, build the team yourself, which normally takes a little bit more time and effort, time, resources, and probably cost. Or you can buy it. You can go to an organization, a consulting firm, a provider, and buy that expertise in. Takes less time, takes less resources, but normally it's going to cost you a little bit more. Yeah. So I think companies that are not building but want this will look at buyers and will look to buy this as an option. In terms of how we work with clients, or how any kind of firms like ours will work with clients, then there's already kind of a lot of guardrails around how data's managed, how IP's managed. So really from that point of view, the only things that are kind of coming into play in addition is more around then how these AI technologies are using this data. Are those same guardrails in place? And then obviously you're into your kind of fairness and bias pieces. So then how accurate and how good is the data that's feeding out? So it's kind of the same sort of guardrails you had in place before, plus a few extras based on things like bias and fairness. And data sharing, how that's shared across. But again, those you've had in place in terms of GDPR and data privacy acts and pieces, already in place. It's just the source it's coming from.
All right. So let me ask you one last question about this. Now, obviously, technology has made work easier for everyone. Okay. There used to be a certain retirement age. Now, I heard that retirement age is decreasing and decreasing as of now. Maybe I'm incorrect, but you are the best person to tell us. What do you see in the market? And would having AI as a companion for the employees, which will make their work efficient, would that make the retirement age increase or decrease? Because they will be working more efficiently for longer hours. How do you see?
So that's an interesting one. So generally, the general trend at the moment globally is that retirement ages are increasing. So it's increasing. People are working for longer. And people are working for longer mainly because they're living for longer. So, kind of some of the old models around your retirement metrics, which are kind of like, whatever you need to save for retirement, it's the 4% rule, right? So you take out 4% of your retirement fund each month. Unfortunately, that's based on the kind of 1970s, 1980s demographic view that you kind of lived into your about early 80s, right?
Okay.
People are living a lot longer than that now.
Yeah.
So that 4% rule that used to apply from finance principles no longer applies. You run out of money way before you, on average, will die. So that's the first thing. So without any...
And obviously, if you're living longer, you will work a little longer also. You won't...
You have to.
You wouldn't want to retire early because then there is nothing to do for you.
Correct.
People need something to do, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And, because of that kind of labour market shift as well, you've also got a lot, because of kind of the baby boomers, the millennial kind of generations, you now have a lot more of an aging population globally, everywhere in the world. So you have two kind of big shifts. You have a larger, younger demographic, which is an issue in terms of there's a high unemployment, youth employment across many parts of the world, and you have a much higher aging population. So a lot more global humans are going to be retired, not working, which is putting a strain on the working humans to provide and support for that population, right? And as that gap gets larger, then your retirement age will creep up because you are having to work longer. Now, AI, the honest answer here is I don't actually really know what will happen with this, but it'll be an interesting one to see how it plays out, because AI, in theory, can provide the ability for someone to work longer. Like age becomes less of an issue around some of that piece, right? Because certainly things like manual jobs, physical roles, maybe they won't be doing those. But for the roles that AI won't replace, then yes, your retirement, your aging population actually arguably becomes a little bit more valuable. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But I think retirement ages will continue to increase. People will, on average, probably end up working longer. Until you get to some potential situation in the maybe far-flung future where you're getting into things like extreme concepts like universal basic income. I mean, that's this whole separate conversation. But it's
you're absolutely right. That's where when we talk about laying off jobs because of AI and everything, and that's where the people who are against AI, this is what they ask for, that if it's going to take our jobs, what's there to do? How are we going to earn and everything? Okay.
What's my purpose?
What's the purpose? Definitely. And even though if universal basic income applies, they still got to do something. So there has to be some kind of role, and they cannot retire early. Well, yeah. Thank you, Shaun. This was really good. You have shared a lot of good insights with us. I am amazed that how well it is changing the recruitment field as well, because AI is clearly making impact in all the sectors. Thank you for sharing all this information, and thank you for coming to Reboot Room.
Thanks very much for having me. It's a great chat.